In this episode of the Quilted Runway, I'm going to be stitching up the gorgeous Milan Mosaic Dress. It has gathers and a quilted yoke. There are also pieced accents on the sleeve and the hem, and you're going to be amazed at how that comes all together. The shining star of this dress is the yoke. It is foundation paper piece, which is how you get these modern angles, and to really lean into the modern aesthetic, I used solid fabrics. If you've never foundation paper pieced before, get ready to learn, and you're going to instantly become addicted like me. So let's dive into the process, and you can dive into your fabric scraps, and I'll show you how to create this modern quilted dress.
Here's everything I used to bring this beauty to life. I started with my dress pattern, printed, taped together, and cut to my size, along with the foundation paper piecing patterns for the front and back yokes. I also grabbed my main dress fabric, plus smaller scraps for all the piece details, the yoke, sleeve inserts, and the fabulous flounce. For my version, I'm using some Kimberbell Solids from Maywood Studio. I love how vibrant and crisp they are. I also gather my thread, batting, and the everyday sewing and cutting tools. I'm using my magnetic cutting system from SewTites. It makes cutting so much easier. And don't forget elastic for the sleeve ends. A few curved safety pins for quilting or basting, and an optional walking foot to help stitch through all the layers. And that's the lineup. Once everything's ready, I'm all set to turn fabric and scraps into something totally runway worthy. To get started, I grab my first foundation paper piecing pattern. I like to write my fabric color choices directly onto the paper so I can easily keep track as I sew. I begin by placing my first fabric piece on the wrong side of the paper, underneath the section labeled A1. I make sure the fabric extends at least a 1/4 inch beyond all the edges of that shape. That extra coverage is key for clean seams later. Next, I use pins to mark where the seam line between A1 and A2 will be. This helps me visualize exactly where that seam lands when I flip the pattern over. My first fabric piece is right side up. I take my second fabric piece for A2, this is my gray fabric, and place it right sides together with the first piece, lining it up along that seam line and allowing for a 1/4 inch seam. I repin everything in place and double check on the wrong side that the gray fabric fully covers section A2. Once everything looks good, I head to the sewing machine. I flip the pattern to the printed side and stitch directly on the line between A1 and A2. When I'm foundation paper piecing, I shorten my stitch length to about 1.5. It makes removing the paper later so much easier. I also begin and end my stitching a couple of stitches beyond the seam line for extra security. After stitching, I fold back the paper, trim away the excess fabric, and take it to the iron for a good press. Next, I repeat those same steps for the seam from A2 to A3, and this is my teal piece. I pin the next segment, stitch on the line, fold back the paper, trim, and press. This is going to get very repetitive here, but I just keep pinning, stitching, trimming, and pressing until all the segments are sewn in alphanumeric order onto the paper pattern. Once all my fabric segments are sewn, I trim around all 4 edges of the block. Now each yoke is made from 2 mirror image blocks. I create the second block the exact same way and then stitch the 2 blocks together with right sides facing. Now I remove the paper. That shorter stitch length creates a nice perforation, which makes tearing away much easier. I used curved safety pins to secure the pieced rectangle to my batting layer, and now I'm ready to quilt. I grab a piece of batting that's slightly larger than my pieced yoke and start planning out my quilt lines. I use the angles and the direction of the fabric pieces as my guide, and I use the edge of my walking foot as a spacing guide as well. But this is a great place to get creative. Use whatever quilting technique you prefer. If you want to pre-plan any quilting, you could draw it out with a heat erasable pen and a ruler. I decided to use my walking foot to make stitching easier and start with my first top stitch seam along a diagonal in my pieced top. From there, I continue quilting using the edge of my quilting foot as my guide. I'm being a little improvisational with my quilting. Again, this is your chance to have fun and make it your own. Once all the quilting is done, I trim away the excess batting. I quilt my back yoke the exact same way. And yes, I do notice I missed one of the fabric segments up there in the corner, but when I lay the back yoke on top, you can't even tell, so I keep moving forward. This is where my SewTites magnetic cutting system really shines as I cut out my quilted back yoke and then my front yoke. I create the sleeve inserts and the dress flounce using a similar approach with a technique called string piecing. I cut 2 paper patterns for each piece. For the sake of showing this clearly on camera, I demonstrate using a smaller rectangle, but I'm following the exact same process. I grab a bunch of fabric scraps and make sure they're wider than my paper pattern. I place my first piece on the paper, then line up the next scrap right sides together and stitch directly on the paper using a 1/4 inch seam. I give it a good press, add another scrap, stitch, press, and repeat until the entire paper pattern is covered. And then I trim around the edges. Once all the pieces are complete, I remove the paper from the back, and now I have 2 string piece sleeve inserts and 2 string pieced flounce sections, and they look so good. At this point, I have all of my pieces ready to assemble. A quilted front yoke, a quilted back yoke, yoke facing, 4 pocket pieces, complete sleeves with insert, main dress front and back pieces, and my string pieced flounce sections. I've already sewn the sleeve inserts into the sleeves and attached the flounce sections to the bottom of the dress, so everything is ready to go.
Now that we have our pattern pieces cut, our yoke quilted, our string pieces inserted, sewn and inserted into the sleeve and the dress, it's time to get started stitching this dress together. And we're gonna start with my favorite part, which is the yoke.
To assemble the dress, I start by pinning the quilted front and back yokes right sides together at the shoulder seams and stitching them. I repeat this for the yoke facings as well, and then press the shoulder seams open. Next, I place the quilted yokes and facings right side together, lining up the center seams, shoulder seams, and neckline. I pin around the neckline and stitch, then clip into the seam allowance along the curve, up to, but not through the stitch line. Or, alternately, you could do what I do, which is using pinking shears. This is a little tip I have, which is one of my favorite tricks. And then I turn everything right side out and give it a really good press. After pressing, I baste the facing and quilted yokes together around all of the raw edges. Then I'm treating it as one piece. To attach the main dress body, I stitch 2 rows of basting stitches along the top edge of the front dress piece, one about 1/4 inch from the edge and another about 1/2 inch below. I match the top edge of the dress to the bottom edge of the front yoke, pinning at the center front and sides. I gently pull the bobbin threads to gather the fabric evenly, pin everything in place, and stitch. I finish the raw edge with my serger, but a zigzag stitch works just as well. I repeat all of these steps for the back. Now it's time for the pockets. I like to finish all of the raw edges of the pockets and the side seams first. Then I pin the pocket piece to one side at the pattern markings, this is right sides together, and stitch the pocket in place. And then I press that seam open and the pocket away from the main part of the dress. Next, I line up the front and back dress pieces, matching the pockets, and pin everything together and stitch down the side seam, around the pocket, and down to the hem. After stitching, I press all of the seams open and I repeat for the other side. For the sleeves, I take my completed sleeve piece and fold it in half, right sides together, lining up the insert. I stitch the underarm seam and I finish the raw edges with my serger. While I'm at the machine, I also sew a row of basting stitches along the sleeve cap between the markings to prepare for gathering. Back at the table, I pull the bobbin threads to gather the sleeve cap. With the dress inside out and the sleeve right side out, I slip the sleeve inside the dress so that the right sides are facing. I line up the underarm seam and shoulder seam, adjust the gathers until everything fits nicely, pin it in place, and stitch. If I'm feeling cautious about sewing in my seam, I'll baste the sleeve in first, and then once everything looks good, I stitch it in place. Then finish the raw edges, remove the basting stitches, and turn everything right side out. To create the sleeve casing, I finish the bottom raw edge, press it up 1/2 inch, and stitch, leaving an opening. I measure my elastic to fit comfortably around my bicep, then thread it through using a safety pin. I secure the elastic ends with a few back and forth stitches from the excess and stitch the opening closed. To finish the dress, I serge the bottom edge, press it up 1 inch, and yes, I do this so often that I pretty much eyeball it at this point, and top stitch the hem in place. You can absolutely do a double fold hem here if that's your preference. And with that, the Milan Mosaic dress is finished. Fully pieced, quilted, and ready to wear. I finished my Milan Mosaic quilted dress, and I think it turned out pretty great. It's a showstopper. Oh, and if you're wondering, I also made one that's a top. So there are options. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of the Quilted Runway. To get the pattern used in this video, click the link to download for free for a limited time. We would love to see your creation, so make sure to use hashtag the Quilted Runway on social if posting, and to follow us at SewDailyMakers and _quilting_daily on Instagram for even more sewing and quilting ideas and inspo. Oh, and remember, anywhere can be your runway, so wear your quilted creations to conventions, creative events, or meetups, or for just running errands. Happy stitching!